All right, where are we? Where are we? Hello, oh, there you are. Hello, everyone. Greetings. I am back. I'm Adam Abraham, and welcome to the Making It Up as I Go show. I'm saying that more because I like that. I like it because, in a way of speaking, I prefer not to be scripted. I do have some ideas in mind of what I want to cover. I have some reasons for sitting here in front of this camera and presenting myself to you, along with my jury of my peers here in the background. And but I don't have this stuff written down. I did actually make some notes today. I did make some preparations as a subject matter because talking about I call it the wages of not questioning, and it's my opinion that we are we are a society that's now steeped on actually not questioning things, having information flooded and being inundated with information. I will even say spurious, false information, certainly distorted, and being flooded with that, with the idea that everyone knows that. And if anyone who has spent some time doing a modicum of, I'll say, research, I'll also say introspection, they can easily find out and get to you want to get to the root of the issue of the matter. And, something will tell you that, this idea doesn't hold water. And yet, if we're following it because everyone else is following it, that's the ultimate test, and it's not a test of for your allegiance. It's not. It's a test of consciousness. It's a test of readiness to be yourself. If we are really not comfortable being ourself, saying what's on our mind, letting our uh, truth speak for it. When you're talking the truth, whatever it is, you don't really have to get angry about it. You don't have to. I mean, I think that, typically people get angry and they start feeling bad, they get sick and stuff like that. It's when they have truth that they don't share. It's not the ones that you do, it's what you don't share. It's the things that you don't express, you don't let out, because it's not always about something being wrong or something being bad or something like that, but it's about something not being welcomed. It's someone not, or something about you or me or whomever not being regarded, given the space to actually be communicated, because the recipient respects you. There's a whole bunch of disrespect that's just normal and customary these days in typical interactions. And as a casualty of all that stuff, people tend to clam up even more and more. And, we don't progress. We don't progress as a society. And ultimately, the ultimate test is how well, first of all, do you accept and relate with who you are? And in so doing, how well do you relate with others who you think are not you? Okay? Because that's kind of why we kind of do a lot of things we do, because we think we're in our particular group and they're in theirs, and it's us versus them. And that is the great appearance of things, that we are some um, collective of discrete parts, when the evidence that I've at least come across that rings true to me is that no such thing exists. You are, let us say, a reflection of me. I'm a reflection of you. We are reflections of each other. We are all parts of the same thing, and our roots are one. And it doesn't matter what you look like. It doesn't matter what you embrace or disembrace, for that matter, what you believe or not believe. If you can suck air, there's life flowing through you. And that life is not that force is not the thing that you can see. It's the thing that makes it possible for you to interact with it. And we have, in fact, the more and more we come to realize that, we start getting into a place where we can start to consciously be imagining things. And because we're typically unconsciously doing it now, but the real um, I want to say task or opportunity is to learning how to actually master how to do it consciously, how to decide what you want to live and how you want to live, what life you want to live, and then to create that with the intent to do it, with the knowing that you have the power to do it. The power is within you to do it. That's the whole point. And we're thinking that we're powerless, but we're really not powerless. We are actually living the life according to how we think now. What we are living right now, to the extent that we love it or hate it, or we're satisfied or dissatisfied, it's all about us. It's about coming at to some truce, some peace, some acceptance of self. And gosh, we've been really trained to just be very dismissive of that, to ignore that. We are the most invisible 8 billion people on this planet, and we are invisible. We all our value is associated with the stuff that we have, or the money we've got, or the influence we have. Our opinions, we tend to think, don't mean anything. And then we listen to people's opinions, which really don't mean anything because they don't know us or even care about us particularly. So if you're not caring about yourself and you're not letting your own opinion uh, be your guide, I say your own opinion, and you can put in or not put in whatever form or whatever words you want relative to the source of that life. Because the source of that life that you are, that I am, we're one. So you talk about free will. Free will does exist, and the life we're living is the evidence of it. Okay, so and it's these ideas are not widely thought about. They're not widely considered, and probably is one reason why I do this, because for whatever reason, if I talk long enough to a lot of people of a wide range, I'll at the moment I'll piss them all off, because it means I can back up anything I say, and anything that I say, that when I don't know something, I say that too. I don't know it all, but no one does. But there are a lot of people who are acting like they know everything there is to know about what I should be doing. And I take exception with that way of thinking, because that's part of our social, cultural, historic, and everything else problems. And I'm also the opinion that until we start changing those things, we'll continue to be waiting for, most likely, the sky to fall. People are waiting for this catastrophe or that, of different names. And we've been primed, we become accustomed to preparing. But what preparations are we seeking? We're preparing for what? The worst. We're set on, not stunned, but dumb. Okay. We take dumb actions and then champion them, and then are wondering why it's not better. So I think I've learned a little bit about how those things happen and why they happen. And I know they can be changed. And so I talk about those things, or at least I like to bring them up. And one of the things I will say is that, as a goal, in sitting here and talking and interacting, also as people decide they want to do some dancing uh, along these lines through this medium, the idea and the purpose here is that we can all go away with a better feeling about things. Not only a better feeling about ourselves, but a better feeling about now, and a better feeling about tomorrow. Because the more we start to come in touch with and to actualize the best that is within each of us, we start taking back, I will say, the reins, so to speak, not of control, but certainly of influence. You have influence over your life. You can steer the direction of your life. No one else, I'll say, no one else can, because no one else can. No one can steer the direction of my life except me. I don't call myself the giver of my life. I just one day realized, hell, I'm here. Okay. And I also realized I had no, before 1951, I didn't have any memories of being anywhere else. I said, gee, wow, seems like I wasn't here. And then I was, and now I am. At some point in time, I'm not going to be here, wherever this place called here is. But the ideas that I uh, give birth to, the ideas that I embrace, the things that I care about, uh, they're going to leave an impression. That's going to happen because people, in fact, much of what I know, much of what I've learned is due to impressions that everyone in my life that I recall and perhaps that I don't recall have made on me. They've made on this consciousness. So I want to help people to come to a place of seeing that we are something other than what we appear to be. But in seeing that, we also start to realize that we have powers and abilities that actually, it's not that we're not using them. We are using them right now. We have always used them. The system is not broken. We think of this is right, this is wrong, or they are right and they are wrong. And the system itself is working perfectly. Everything that is happening, whether we like it or not in the moment, is perfect for the people who are having the experience. Some of them are having the experience intellectually. They're seeing stuff on TV, they're seeing it on the news or the olds or wherever they're getting their information from. And that's one level of interaction. And certainly there's a whole bunch of reaction. There's a whole bunch of, oh, how can that be going on? And then there's also the more direct experience that we are having day to day, minute to minute. And every one of them, I realized some years ago that in the course of my life, the one person who is with me, or the one, I'm saying person, the one who is with me throughout all of my life, I'll say actually are two. It's me that I am aware of, and it's the me that caused me to be here. Those are the two parts of the one. We are part of something greater. The me that caused me to be here is the you that caused you to be here. Be here. Okay? That's what we share by whatever name. And it turns out that we have the ability, that is our number one connection. That's the number one awareness that we ought to be. Well, it's kind of what you come from. It's kind of what you are part of. Uh, it works the same way because it works through our imagination. We imagine things and they come into being for us to the extent that we give our time, our energy, our thought, our actions toward it. And I call this thing the wages of not questioning because we are experiencing the consequences, the effects, the ramifications of when a society is encouraged and habituates the idea of simply listening to some authority. Our education system, our social system is all set up around someone meeting out the conventions. Soon as you get in here, as soon as you come out the chute, you are, if someone is born in a institute, a birthing institution, I'll call it, like I'll call a hospital, they're immediately set upon with injections, with different type of procedures, various procedures which are trauma causing and, or you say traumatic, And by the time you get out of the hospital, if you've done the conventional thing, a person already has the the seeds of their future diseases already have been planted because they are all based around traumas. And we talk about the various diseases that are going to come, and the whole idea is that, well, they haven't showed up yet, and looks like you're pretty healthy, but we need to be shooting all this crap into you right now, which are going to do some major and real environmental damage inside this little old body. And guess what? It's going to cause some. These are the seeds of future diseases, and we're so used to doing it. It's been passed on for generations and generations. None of it is intelligent, but we think it's so. We think the people who do it, who have their own language, we have put them on pedestals. They are considered smart and revered. So we're supposed to listen to them. We've been being told and conditioned to think that we can't question whatever they say, and that whatever they say is so, and it's some flaw within us that they are fixing. How magnanimous! As long as we can pay the bill. There are certain things, if you're looking into a future, and if we take the time to imagine the future, you got to ask yourself, do you want that? Do you want that to be the norm? It's the norm now, but do you want this to be the norm for the future that you imagine? Now, I'm really clear on it. It's not going to be mine. It's and I've said this before. Unless I'm doing some kind of mercy mission, ain't no way. Okay. I remember as a kid, I got some stories I tell from time to time, and so I've heard this story before, but but maybe you haven't. As a kid, I must have been about 6 or 7 years of age, and I'm looking here, and I'm seeing here on my shoulder here, and I see this little circle here, and I asked my mom, I said, "What's this?" I'm a kid now, but I can look at this and realize there's something that ain't correct about that. I mean, in the sense that it's, it's unusual. And so I asked, because it was a circle and with a point in right you know in the center of that concentric. And my mom told me that was where I was vaccinated. I got a vaccination. Now this is it's still in the 1950s. All right. Sometimes it amazes me to think I've been around the sun that many times. I remember this stuff. And anyway, she explained what it was. And, over the course of time, I may have had some more, because in those days, there weren't many vaccines. Okay. I mean, you weren't given a lot, but you were given them because actually I found a document. It was some document from the 1890s, and it was in San Diego, and in 1899 or something like that. um, Vaccinations were mandatory in 1899 if you wanted to have your child in a public school. And that was certainly something, it was in place when I came along. I mean, not just when I came along, but when my kids came along, to be in a public school, they had to have those vaccinations. So they had to have the shots. And excuse me, it has gotten, uh, first of all, it wasn't borne out, it wasn't verified as a biological benefit, even from the time that vaccinations were introduced. The idea, because when I mentioned 1899, that was about 100 years after vaccinations were, I want to say, presented as an idea, as a concept to the British Crown. Well, gosh, I already gave away where it was from because it said the British Crown, the Crown, but it was by a guy named Edward Jenner. And he got the great idea that in order to deal with smallpox, which was an issue from time to time in England at the, in the late 18th century, beginning of the 19th century. They were using a process called variolation, which involved getting samples of human pox. So they had to have some samples of pox when the outbreak was occurring, and they would essentially, um, I'm thinking, snort it. That was a term. It was kind of like if someone was taking cocaine, they were somehow taking it through their nose, but they had to have the actual human stuff, which was somewhat problematic for inventory sake. Okay, so the Jenner came up with the idea. Said, "Well, hey, this great idea that cows." Well, use a cowpox. In fact, he even suggested that it was a better solution than human. And the people who he was talking to, again, who the crown was at the time, they didn't care. It was the fact is, this made it possible to actually produce the material, to store it, to inventory it, and then produce it in sufficient supply that they can do some revenue on it. And I learned about this maybe 10 years, 10, 12 years ago now. They charged 18 pence. It wasn't something that they simply gave out for humanitarian purposes. This was all about business. Okay. This is about revenue. And the mark very likely may have been your receipt or your proof, okay, that you had actually paid the 18 cents. They just marked. I mean, people have not been regarded uh, for a long time. They've been treated like chattel property, and they've accepted it. They've become accustomed to it. And that's been to a great, I'd say, consequence, because it has been passed down from generation to generation. Yet, if it's not questioned, if it's these are the wages of not questioning, okay, these are the wages of not challenging, because as I recall, Jenner actually gave some of this cowpox to I think one of his sons, and his son didn't survive, and and yet the crown, because he gave them a great idea for a business model, he got 10,000 pounds as a honorarium, I guess you might call it. He put that in for putting something in the suggestion box. And in 1799 or whatever that year, because it was right around the turn of the century, 10,000 pounds is a whole bunch of funds for an idea. So, and within the area, as far as history is concerned, as far as medical history is concerned, Edward Jenner, he's one of the pillars of medicine, of orthodox medicine, having come up with the idea of vaccines and vaccinations. And of course, this was taken to another level when Louis Pasteur in the mid 1800s, mid to late 1800s, took it to another level. He introduced the idea of, well, first of all, germ theory, and also vaccines, or vaccine or spectrum of vaccines for rabies. Um, he was like, well, you got Napoleon III was his benefactor. Was uh, what's the guy's name? I'm just now saying. I knew I was going to do this. Was uh, well, my mind is playing with me because Pasteur is his name, and I was thinking of pasteurization. We know him. We know the term pasteurization, and so we know him also for, probably more so for pasteurization. But I'm doing great, Damien. Good to see you. Um, Louis Pasteur, we know mostly for pasteurization because we hear that term, possibly or possibly not knowing the connection between him and that. So he gave us the idea of pasteurization, and that's the process of taking the living elements out of milk, for example, or other liquids, but typically for milk. And well, they pasteurize orange juice, they pasteurize a lot of things, but you heat it all up and you kill off the microbiology that's in it, the living stuff that's within it. Now, that makes it so that, okay, well, the stuff will sit on a shelf, and that makes it good for the purveyor, okay, increases the shelf life. But the problem is this: it becomes biologically inert. It becomes like just putting some garbage into, the fuel tank. It takes a lot more energy to process it because the life that is normally there to facilitate that is no longer there. And so, okay, we become accustomed to all of those things. But Pasteur introduced pasteurization. He also introduced rabies. Well, not rabies per se, but the fact that if someone was got a bite or sustained any kind of thing, interaction with another animal, it became automatic. They started looking for rabies, and then if they found it, they would have to endure a series of injections. And there are people for whom those injections were, I'd say the stress associated with the injections were enough to kill a few people. And see, here's the deal. The injections may or may not been the thing that killed. It was the fear, it was the dread that killed. Essentially, it was the person not say killing themselves. But see, that gets into another of our existential matters. The fact is that, does death exist? There is no such thing as death, because we are life. We are a living being. Our science has already uh, confirmed that energy cannot be destroyed. Everything that exists is energy. We are in a field of energy. And okay, there are some there's some concentrations. I just picked up my phone. This is energy. Okay. This is energy. I'm holding my hand up. This is energy. So these are different concentrations of energy, and also with different qualities to it. However, while this can be ripped to shreds at some point in time, this, as long as I'm present, I, the being that is expressing through this thing, then it's here. It's got a use for it. When I withdraw, and we do this every night, or whenever you sleep, oftentimes you withdraw from the body, and the body is here, but you still have a connection. There's still an energy. There's a feeding that sustains it in this form. What the thing that's called death is basically when that connection to the form has basically been withdrawn, and there's no more purpose for the form here. And the natural and normal thing for it to do would be to begin to decay. And when that connection is withdrawn, that will signal, and then other things are triggered. I mean, people have this idea, and they've got this gag reflex with cadavers and things like that, because oh, the things that come up, it's like they're in you. They're not in you until there's a reason for them to be in the form when you've gone, when you've left. And we, as a society, have not worked these things out to any level of intelligence, any level of maturity, because the evidence is that life persists. that life persists after death, and therefore that means that life also persists before what we think of as birth. And so when a book says thou shall not kill, it really is not necessarily a commandment. It's some good advice. It's because there's no death. You don't solve anything by trying to just simply eliminate the person or people or whomever. You got there are people on this planet. There's a group of folks on this planet who are thinking that the planet is overpopulated, and the only answer that they can figure out is to reduce the population. I was watching a video on this yesterday. I mean, people talk about this all the time because of the World Economic Forum and there was this other Bilderbergs and all these folks that get together and they figure they've got the blueprint for the world. They're just a bunch of people, just like you and I are. And you know something? They have no more power than you and I do. They simply are they're expressing their opinions, and they actually think their opinions mean something. And the thing is, a lot of other people think that their opinions mean something too. And that's the only that's the only way they get their power, the power to influence people. Ultimately, though, that's also how our training is, our education system has worked in the sense that people, I came through a school, and it's a school of conformity. They teach and they promote and they reward conformity. They're not rewarding individuality, they're not encouraging expression of the being, allowing that little being to discover themselves, not about by setting limits, but by being there for that being and allowing them, giving them places to express themselves, to find out what their likes are, to find out what their talents are, and to nurture them. We all have them. We all have gifts, and generally speaking, um, oftentimes we go through entire lifetimes without really exercising them, without using them, and therefore our society not actually gaining the benefit of that gift. Talking about gifts, I'm reading a book right now, and I'm about 60% or more through it. I'll mention the title. The title of it is Modern Bethesda. I may have mentioned this before, but I'm just reading it right now, and but I'm taking it all in. But I'll describe why the book is really significant. If I go here, pull this over, you can't see what I'm doing right now, but you will here shortly. We're not going to read the book, at least I'm not going to, but I'm going to show you the the cover. Life and Labors of Dr. J.R. Newton, Healer. Now, this fellow, and you can see by the um, typeface here, this is not a new book. You can see here, this book is from the archive.org. This book was from the library of the University of California. And apparently, the author, I presume the author signed this book in October of 1881. This was a pretty recent edition because the book was published in 1879. You can hardly see that, but I looked at it. Anyway, so 1879. And what's the story here? I thought at first this was an autobiography. It's not an autobiography. It is actually, um, it says the modern Bethesda, or the gift of healing restored, being some account of the life and labors of Dr. J.R. Newton, healer, and with observations on the nature and source of the healing power and the conditions of the exercise. Now, this was that's the editor. The editor was A.E. Newton. Now, I don't know if that was his brother or just coinky dink or what, that his name was Newton. And I'm presuming it was a he too. But so the editor, so this person compiled all this information. And to give you just the gist of it, J.R. Newton is credited with healing, restoring the health. Let's put it that way. Restoring the health, documented restoration of health for over 250,000 people, a quarter of a million people, one guy, and operating. They talk about operations. When he operated on someone, we think about the medical doctors operating on you, and some slicing and dicing is going to be happening for sure. Some pain and some drain is going to be happening. And I mean that from an energetic standpoint, from your hopes standpoint, from your money, your wallet standpoint. All of those things are going to be happening, and all of it's going to be coming out of you. Okay. That's the general perception today. It was a general experience also in J.R. Newton's day. Now, in his case, though, his operations involved something different. What was it? It was basically where he would put himself in a state of love. He established a connection with the person that he was going to um, be sending or channeling energy. He was a conduit for energy. The energy came from within him, passing through him to the person, to the recipient. The recipient was not necessarily even present. Some people would actually cut off a lock of their hair. Some people would send a possession, maybe a watch or a shoe or something. They would send it if they couldn't go get there themselves. And that's all he would need. Someone would bring something for someone else, and he would say, by the time you get back home, they will be well. They'll be healed. And they were. And the thing that was necessary here, first of all, Newton made that decision to be loving, to open this channel. This channel is within you, it's within me. We all have it, first of all. The recipient needed to be willing enough, I'm going to say, to believe or to accept. In some cases, they didn't even have to be nice. Okay. I mean, I've been reading a whole bunch of these because this book is full of essentially affidavits. They are accounts. They go into history, talking about healing. They go into, I'm flipping pages that you don't see, but they go through some of history, uh, going from the first century AD, crossing different lines of religious teaching. We're talking about from Catholic to Protestant to whatever, because it has nothing to do either with religion either. Religion and spirituality, religion has tended to overshadow the issue of and the matter of spirituality, when in fact it is spirituality that overshadows religion. We are spiritual beings, whether we are religious or not. And because we are spiritual beings, it means we are also loving. It's not that you're necessarily being loving, but love is what got you here in the first place. Something that wherein love is a factor, is why you exist, why I exist. We don't have to believe, know, or anything else. Knowing, believing, accepting is a good thing, it's beneficial. It's better than not knowing or believing. Just listen to, I don't know if you watch any people's near death experiences. I watch a lot of videos of people's near death. I say near death, they call them near death experiences, but ultimately they are where they had these extra corporeal uh, encounters where they had left the body for oftentimes for medical reasons or some type of trauma, and they ended up coming back, so to speak, but they came back with these amazing accounts of what occurred. And see, then I hear people talk about such things, and then I when there's someone says, then I realized I was dead. You talk about an oxymoron. This person is realizing something, and they're in the process of realization, and yet they're thinking that they're dead. Well, hell, if you are quote unquote dead, how can you realize anything? We have not passed on a sufficient understanding of what dimensions are and how they function, and how you can be in a dimension and not be perceived. At the same time, you can also be um, in a dimension and be perceived, and they may not be even far away. When you start thinking about how we treat people who have passed on, for example, who still exist, who still have a sense of awareness of who they are, of their identity, they still have feelings, they still have knowledge, they have things, but they don't have what a connection. Because as a society, as a social norm, we have turned off. We act as though when quote unquote death occurs, when withdrawal occurs, there's no more communication between the two. Now the issue is, was there love? Love transcends all of those things, first of all. But when we start to realize that love does transcend, they transcend our fears, they transcend so many things. And when you listen to, I watch um, a lot of near death experiences videos. Some of them are religious in their orientation, and that's a function of the consciousness of the being, as well as, I'll say, their interpretation. I mean, there's some, they've seen this being, and they just knew it was Jesus. And you know something? Whether it was the being didn't give them an ID card, they just gave them a feeling. They had a feeling resulting from that encounter. Now, everyone has what's referred to as a higher self. You can call it a soul, you can call it a lot of things, but our conditioning in our experience here, our memories, are the impressions. I mean, I grew up in a Baptist environment. I heard the stories of, who's our Lord and Savior and stuff like that. I don't see it. I see Jesus. I'll say who. This is my show. I'll say how I see it. I see Jesus as a fella, as a guy, just like you. Well, no, I don't know what you are, but like me, I mean, so I'm figuring a whole bunch of people are watching this, not all guys. But the bottom line is, he was a being just like you are. But when he says the Father and I are one, that applies to you too. When you start talking about the I'll just say this: God giving His only Son, it wasn't Jesus the dude. Okay, it was the the pattern, the energetic pattern, which is essentially a subset of the source itself. That's what Jesus was one with. That's what you are. That's what J.R. Newton was one with. That is what you and I can be one with. I use the term love. J.R. Newton used it too. Jesus used it for that matter. So this isn't religious in its, this is reality, actually. But we have basically culturally filtered all that stuff out, particularly as we notice the absence of love in so many things that we do, but we don't notice the degradation in the quality of the experience. So people are having, um, you know, gosh, I didn't turn on my music. I had it queued up. I mean, I didn't talk that much longer, but point is, I still have it on. So people are may or may not be noticing the degradation, the diminishing of love as part of our social and cultural interactions. Because when you're into factionalism, if you're into your group and what your group needs versus someone else's, and we are in this competitive type of thing, love is not happening there. Love is at an ebb. So that's the source material. That's the source stuff. It's the power. Our power goes down. And that's where the map of consciousness, I will share that. Now I'll say this real quick. This was last week, but I have applied for a copyright. I have submitted a copyright for my map of consciousness, and so that is happening. That process is happening right off. I'm making it. You can copyright something the moment you create it, something new, but the map of consciousness, I have submitted a formal copyright for it. I will show you it. Here it is. Here it is. Now I'm going to make it. I have it in two forms. Well, it's one map, but it's now with this background, as you can see, and also the original background is white. But I'll read this for anyone that is new to this. Consciousness is the lens through which we conceptualize, view, interpret, and ultimately experience life, both as we know it and as we wish it to be. It is consciousness, our awareness of self as units of one and all life that persists before the first breath of birth and after the last breath of death. I could put some quotation marks around that. The map of consciousness was originally introduced by Dr. David R. Hawkins, MD, PhD, in its groundbreaking book, Power versus Force, The Hidden Determinants of Human Behavior. And I believe it was 2002 it was published. The map of consciousness, a psi chart adaptation. I just came up with this term, psi chart. I'll explain that in a little bit. Is an amalgamation of oneness and consciousness. So the two words, the word concept of oneness, the concept of consciousness, blended together, synthesized, and it was done an amalgamated by me, Adam Abraham. And the map of consciousness is designed to help us see the real goal and gifts of life and serve as a roadmap to facilitate the volitional, mean by our own choice, voluntary, redirection of mind, attention, energy, and action based on habituated and acquired beliefs about ourselves. to a conscious knowledge and experience of our inherent, implicit, and inalienable Godness. It's quite a long sentence, but I hope I got it got it well enough for you. And I'm also, sometimes I don't get on these here. I don't do this every day, but I'm doing something else. So I've been doing all this design work since I last did a preview of my map of consciousness. I have refined it some more. I had dotted lines around the the event horizon going from the force domain to the power domain, which is through courage. And you can see this. Oh, there it is right there. So the map of consciousness of David Hawkins, these are for anyone who's familiar with that, these are the expressions which Dr. Hawkins attributed a number to. And the numbers went from 20, at shame was at 20 to, well, 1,000, and that was enlightenment. Okay. And so those numbers were logarithmic. So 20, so you see, I've changed this. I'm calling this, first of all, the luminosity index, or you might refer to it as the oneness index, and it's also logarithmic. So from 0.02 of shame to 0.03, which is guilt, okay, or this is a big shift. It seems small here, but it's a huge shift. In David Hawkins' map of consciousness, fear was 100, because shame is 20, fear is 100. But from 20 to 100 in his chart was still 10 times. I mean, it's a large number. So when you're in shame, or in the consciousness of shame, you're really feeling not, well, you could say low, but more so it's dim. It's about your light is so diffused to be barely perceptible. And how many people are habituating a place of shame, of guilt, or are apathetic? Or how many people here, even grief is below fear? So Dr. Hawkins, it would be 75 for grief. And again, 100 is fear. Now, there is this area which is referred to as the area of force. And the area of force is where you're trying to push and make things happen. And these are the attributes of consciousness. That's why they call it a map of consciousness. That's why he called it, that are attributed to a particular type of expression. And much of where our society habituates in consciousness is actually in fear. Has anyone suggested that you be fearful of anything lately? And here's pride. Even pride is above fear. Desire is above fear. Anger, all these are above fear. But the line of demarcation of moving from the area of force, where you're trying to make things happen artificially or from outside, is courage. And that in his map is 200. In my map here, in my map of consciousness, is 0.2. And so the journey in the map of consciousness and the oneness index is simply to be one, and is to get to the place of one. And look at here, when you're at one, you're at wholeness, you're at strength. Here's cooperation, here's health and healing. These all are within the boundaries of power. This is where, and so I changed this from a dotted line to a really nice, bold green line because this is where you want to spend the bulk of your time, your thinking. I mean, look at the words, look at the concepts, feel the feeling of these terms: satisfying, hopeful, harmonious, meaningful, benign, perfect. All of this, all of these are within the realm of power. And if you remember Dr. Hawkins' map of consciousness, it was laid out as a chart. So you could look at it, you could see from 20 to 1,000, and you could see all this. But it occurred to me last year to put this out the way you see it. And so this is what it is now. And I see this as a tremendous tool that people will be able to use. And it's interesting because I think it was a few days ago too, I came up with this term, side chart. And so the way it came to me is that I was thinking of optometrists and their eye chart. And so the eye chart, and the thing is of having this on a wall, these things will be large and on a wall where they can be referred to people, by an individual or a group. I can imagine groups of people with a large map of consciousness talking about these things because it's a self-assessment. You, if you look at these, only you know where your thinking typically is. Only you know how you think about this or that, or what your beliefs are about this, that, or the other. When people are talk about neutrality. I mean, we've got entire, football leagues. We've got sports. We've got competition. We have all of these things, which are all. Here's pride. It's close to power, but it ain't there. It's outside. It's still force. You got groups of people getting together against other groups of people and getting paid to do it. So money then becomes an enabler and a way to keep people seeking to do those things to get the money. But it's all ego. Ego unto itself doesn't really exist. That's another thing, because again, it seems to exist when you live in a place of duality where you're at this person, you're at that person, you're fighting this, you're fighting that. We have to eradicate this, we have to eradicate that. You don't have to eradicate anything. Transcend it. You start loving, you start realizing it's a part of you too. These are cool things to start to discover about ourselves and start to realize where, as we begin and to continually focus our thinking, our perceiving, our choosing within this other space, because it's all there, it's all available, it's equally available. The source is the source. It doesn't care. And I don't mean this in a disinterested way. Source is interested, but not that interested that it's going to, how many people do, and have you heard of thinking that, well, Jesus is going to come back, he's going to kick ass and take names, he's going to vanquish this. That's all duality thinking. There are no real boundaries except the ones we believe exist. So here it is. Being one with the whole, being one with source, being one in joy and peace and love and serenity and cooperation, all this with each other. This is one of the reasons I so much love, and you could say I champion the CoopCrowd platform, because it actually uses these principles. It rewards the exercising of these principles. You can't force anyone to do these things. If you're looking to make money unto itself, you don't tend to care if someone else loses for you to win, so to speak. There's a winner loser dynamic there. And it may be evident, it may not be evident sometimes to some people, but in cooperation, everyone wins. This is a model. In this case, Co-op Crowd is a model that will allow you to practice cooperation, conscious cooperation, and support of others too, and get paid in funds. Okay, because ultimately we are the creators of our wealth, but we have also habituated the idea that we can't trust ourselves to actually even maintain it. You have to change. If you want to change your life, if you want to change your future, we have to look at every aspect of our life and how we do things right now. If there's something you want to buy in your life, you want to acquire in your life, you want a home, you want a new car, you want to simply be able to pay the rent, you want to be able to pay for the gas prices that are going up out the roof, so to speak, or have been. You want to not care, so to speak, because you have enough. Well, then we need to create other ways of doing things. But when you're talking about major purchases, for example, like a house or car, it is automatic that people think about borrowing money. Okay, why? Because they don't have enough of their own. They don't have a sufficient flow. But can you imagine? Oh yeah, for I know you can imagine, but do you care to imagine what it would be like if you simply wanted a car, you had enough to simply go buy the car. You want to buy a house, and oh, the house is what, $300,000 for a tiny home, okay, or whatever it is. Uh, how cool it would be if I'm talking about the reality, the world that I want to be in, I want to create. I want to plant the seeds for it, whether I achieve it in this lifetime or not. Although it is possible to do, if I want to purchase a home, I want the means to purchase the home. All right. We are millions, hundreds of millions of people who do not have generally speaking, the ability, no matter how big our salaries are, we tend not to have enough to simply go out and buy a house because we want it and we have enough to do it. That is something that can be changed. And I did a video in October on a platform. Some people will know of this. I did it on the Drip Network, a little platform that I love. And I was and was a godsend for me. And at the time I did that, the value of that token, of the Drip token, had gone over 100. It was almost $200 per token. January of last year. And in October, the value of the token had gone down to $7.50. And from October to right now, the value of one Drip token is somewhere around 30 cents a piece. And so it continues. Now, these are whole systems. The value of the Drip token or any coin is directly related to how many they are and how many people are using them. How many people have put their funds into that system, and then also how many people are taking funds out. And generally speaking, there is a transfer. We are doing a transfer of wealth, so to speak. But what has tended to happen is that, generally speaking, the early adopters are those who receive, and then you get a whole bunch of people who are putting in and putting in, but they don't receive back in kind. I am happy to say, in one regard, that because of that process, it was a godsend. Drip was for me a year ago. But I have watched this, and right after I did that video, I started doing a whole bunch of videos on CoopCrowd. I actually had done some even before that, and then a few people watched and who were into the drip platform and said, "Oh, well, you just do that. You shouldn't be changing courses, so to speak, changing in the race, so to speak. And I'll stay with this, and you stay with that." Well, here, October, $7.50 to now 30 cents. It can change. I hope it does. However, CoopCrowd is not based on this. You do not gain what CoopCrowd will produce for you unless you produce something. And that is you put some funds into the system yourself, and the funds are not much. It's either around $100 or around $400. That's it. And then you invite 3 people to do just what you did. And then from there, that's step 1. Or that may be step 2. First is join and fund it yourself. Put that value into the system. Step 2 is that you invite 3 people who do just what you did. Step 3 is that you stick with them, support them in inviting their 3, because what they're doing is learning the process, learning the presentation, and they're also building, because they're extending an invitation for each one to create a flow of income, an ongoing flow. So when your 3 have joined and are active, you basically will have received your funds back. The next step is that when they invite their 3, so you got 3 people inviting 3, so there's 9 new people out. You are definitely, this income is going to come on a regular basis. CoopCrowd is basically a conveyor belt that is moving assets between the members. There's no products involved. There's no drop shipping. There's no the commission value where they've got to cover the cost of the product and everything else. And then the people who are selling the product have to get theirs from what's left, from the shipping and all this other stuff. You're not dealing with any of that stuff. The system simply moves funds from members to members, and it does it automatically, essentially. So when you join and you are helping someone who's already in it, because it goes 10 levels prior to you, and then when someone joins, you are receiving, 9 others are receiving. When the people that they invite, you're talking about that new 9 people, then the folks that inviting them are receiving, you are receiving, and 8 more are receiving. And it continues. But every time a new layer is inviting, you've got 9 people, then you got 27 people, then you've got 81, then 243, 729 people, 2,187 people, then 6,561, then 19,683, and then 59,049. That's on the 10th level. All of those people, all of them inclusive, would have their wallets coming directly to you. At that point in time, it's not anyone else, okay? So the point basically is this can happen within, now that entire process will take the time it takes, but your inviting 3 people can happen within a few days of joining, if you get what I'm saying and you get the feeling of it. And then in the same amount of time, the people that they invite, they can have their 3 within that same period of time. So within a couple weeks' time, you actually have set the stage to have an ongoing flow of income as people know how to do it. They know how to onboard, they know how to present, and they also realize and they know that there is a benefit. They see the funds coming in. That will also excite them, and they will pass that on because people will. You're going to have this hundredth monkey thing happen at some point in time, where there is a critical mass of a consciousness or an awareness, because this is something that doesn't involve you waiting for someone else to do something that should have been done, a decade or 20 years ago. This is all in our own ability to do things. The thing that's relative to a drip platform, for example, they want to now look at the developer. What is he doing? All these, we're all waiting for someone else to do something else. In this case, it's getting back on us. These are things we can not do or we can do. And I know there's 3 people who are like me someplace who will be as committed to doing this as I am. And in that respect, I know 3 people that are like you that would be willing and excited to do this. There are some groups, there are a couple of people in the Netherlands. One in the Netherlands, the other is in Belgium, I know, that they've got a few hundred people. They're just organizing themselves, that they're waiting. Okay, you join, now we will join under you, etc. They are literally cooperating in the cooperation to structure and set their collectives, their crowd stages up so that the income is continual and it continues to grow. So those are some things that I think also are one important, and they're actually exciting, because when we start realizing, first of all, that we have this great power called love within us. And as I talked about the book on J.R. Newton and the people that he touched, the stories are just amazing. And these are first person and second person accounts. So they are first person accounts where the person who had the actual treatment were writing. These were signed affidavits. I mean, they were making it real clear. People were giving their addresses of where they lived, etc. You can come, and of course, a lot of folks were lame. They were crippled. They were on crutches, and sometimes their legs were not the same size or same length. They had inflammations. Some of them were blind. Some of them had tumors. On and on and on. And even though this was all done in the mid 19th century, we're talking about 1860, 1865, 1870, the latest that I've seen, that I'm reading right now. Of course, I'm not over the book yet, but he was in England, he was in London, and also in Ireland in the 1869, 1870 time frame. And they put their addresses down, they do all this stuff. And so the things that they were talking about that they had then, many of them are the same that people talk about today. And so, I mean, from cancers, but the one thing that was interesting, it was so common for people to walk a mile or more or several miles, where here's someone that had been on crutches for, in some cases, a few years. They couldn't get around without the help of a crutch or a cane or something, or their limbs had atrophied. They were clearly not able to hold or sustain their weight. And within a matter, in some cases, of 20 minutes or so, they were standing up, walking on their own, and maybe like the next day, they were out walking a mile or two. This is what's possible. And so people say all things are possible. If you're in a religious context, they say all things are possible with God. Well, if God is all that exists, if God is source, if God is in everything, if there is no real them to the us that we think we are, that would make sense. That would make sense that there's no judgment. We think that there's judgment because what? We've been told that there's judgment. We've been told that we've been told what not to do about everything. And many of the people that are telling us not to do certain things are perversions themselves. Boom, 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 boom. I don't know if you can hear this. But anyway, so my point is this: what can we do? This is my question for myself. What can I do? One thing I can do is love. So I always end my uh, transmissions, I'll call it, with I love you all. I've been doing that for a while. Something in the beginning, if it feels kind of, I'm saying that. After a while, it feels cool. It feels okay. We have to get over, and it's really fascinating. I'm designing some products to go on this web page because I created a website. I'm still designing it as well, and the site is called loveishome.co. And that site will actually have a number of things that I've produced. It'll have the map of consciousness on it. It will have some other things too. It'll have my love proclamations, which I did do a thing on the love proclamations a few days ago, or a week or two ago. Those things are going to be there because these are tools. I am working on loveishome.co, so I can show you the site. The site does exist. Remembering what and who home is. Home is you and you and you, and it's me too. When we're actively flowing love. Okay. So I've written a couple of articles in there for blog posts. I'm still working on it. This is pre-beginning, so there's the about us, and I'm also literally learning. I'm learning the tool that I'm designing this with. So there's going to be a video here. I've already recorded the video. Welcome to loveishome.co. It's about 3 minutes, but there's going to be a video there about me, and there'll be, I guess, more. But I'm doing all of this at this point. I've conceived it. The insights are going to be here. I'll be writing articles and things, but they'll show up here. There it is. And there'll be a store. And I'm creating the stores. This is a sketch of the book cover of my book, I Am My Body Not. Here are the 2 love proclamations, and these are placeholders. The map of consciousness will be here, but there will be more. I'm looking at even writing some books, and I can have others. The point that the map of consciousness is and will be a tool. So those things will be there. The love proclamation, it's a proclamation that love will be the really the principle that I will do my life around. And the first one is to yourself. It's an agreement that you proclaim and you make with yourself. Okay. And in the sense that you are knowingly and of your own volition choosing to be a loving being. It's something to practice day in and day out, year in and year out, life in and life out. There's no time not to be loving. And so These are things that we can choose to do and grow. Or we can do what we've been doing, being very selective and more so withholding. And we pay the price of withholding our love. We pay a price in a devolution, diminution, diminishing, there you go, of the quality of our life experiences. And the thing about it, if we want to improve life, if we want to improve life now, if we want to improve life and the quality of our life in our future, we still do it in our now. We do it here and now in figuring out ways. Well, there are things you don't have to figure it out. This is figuring out. This is being and simply choosing to be it, to do it. And what can be done, what can be achieved is amazing. J.R. Newton did not require anyone's permission to choose to be loving because he was inspired by the example and the descriptions that were in the Bible relative to what Jesus and his apostles did. That was his reasoning. But we've got less than 200 years ago, 250,000. They say, some say between 2 and 300,000 people, their lives were fundamentally, profoundly impacted by this guy touching them with love, with that conduit turned on and open. We can all do that. And so you start hearing people telling you about this danger and that danger, and you start seeing all of the descriptions of profound physical changes, profound and rapid improvements in a very short period of time. He didn't charge, if he did not charge people a penny. He treated everyone the same. If people could afford to offer him or give him or pay him something, he would accept it. If they couldn't, his demeanor was no different. He was indifferent to that. That's what love is. Love is indifferent. We're the ones who have cultivated the idea of being, this is favored and this is not favored. This is essential and this is non-essential. Have you heard that lately? So those are some of the things that have been on my mind. These are some things that I'm doing. I want to continue working on the loveishome.co site. I have videos. I have my old videos that I have done that I still need to put different places. And then on the other hand, I have these insights that I'm sharing today and I'm talking about today. And I'm also, I am going to continue to talk about Co-op Crowd as part of what I do, or it's going to become Co-op Business. The developer is adding something else, and it's not done yet, but apparently it's coming. But at the moment, coopcrowd.com is just fine, and my link is in there. I would invite you to consider joining Co-op Crowd if you ever are of a mind and a desire to have that same kind of experience where you literally, we can together create a substantial, but let's just say at the beginning, a stream of income coming into us. In the crypto space is crypto, but we have the ability to transfer and use it as crypto or use it and convert it back into funds. But we can have and create a sustainable flow of income coming in, so as in the beginning, it may just be to pay off regular payments, the utilities, then the car payments, the loans, then the mortgage. But then, something, as people continue doing this and we continue sharing this with folks, then it's not that anymore. It's simply paying the mortgage off, and then the funds keep coming in. Paying the car off, funds keep coming in. Maybe those people who are continuing to try to get out of their student loans would then start making enough, just pay the damn loan off. And then after you pay it off, I'd be going back to those universities and looking for a refund for teaching them in such a way that they didn't know how powerful that they were. Boy, we have been really, really played like a fiddle when you really get down to it. And you start realizing how wonderful, how amazing you actually are, as you are. And even if we don't like what we have created, we can change that. And it starts by making that decision to love, okay? Not to get money, but to love. And yet, once you make that decision and make it an active part of your life, yeah, we can become magnets for money too. But it's more important that we become beacons of love. Big payoff there. So there we go. Thank you for watching. Thank you for hanging out with me. I'll be back in another couple days. I'm probably sure, because I will. That's the one thing I have not done. Now I will say this relative to the co-op crowd thing and the activity. We will set up, because I will be available to do presentations, but I have a whole bunch of videos. Co-op crowd is not about making a buck. It is literally about the things that I've been talking about now. These are the things that are important. And if people feel or agree that these things are important, I just invite you to let's pool our thoughts, pool our energies together. And it's raining outside, and it's raining. It's sounding almost like sleet, or I know it's not snow, but anyway, it's kind of vigorous out there right now. At any rate, that's good enough. I will sign off. Thank you again. I wish you well. I wish you peace and harmony. I wish you prosperity. And most of all, I wish you love. Love you all. You take care. Till next time, peace. And I'm out of here.